Oh, it's 12 noon. Where else would you rather be than right now? Right here, right now. It's Carm Capriato, 12 o'clock noon East Coast time. Hello, everybody on the Pacific, as you're enjoying your second cup of coffee. We have one heck of a CarmCast here for you today, and it's something I've never done before, and it's something I've longed to do, but I never found the right person or the right data to do it with. I'm with Bill Thompson. I'll introduce him in a minute. Glad to have you here. As you know, we do CarmCast, and it's kind of like, if you will, a short, let me get it off my chest, what's going on in the industry kind of show. And it's not your typical podcast. It's just kind of, if you will, a discussion or a rant between 2, 3, 4, 5 people. I'm glad to have you here. I think you understand the format by now, because I think we're in our 75th week of doing this. I must be nuts. Aftermarketweekly.com every Tuesday, CarmCasts on Wednesday, podcasts, Town Hall Live. It's my life to bring you this kind of information. So glad to have you all here. We titled this thing Shoptalk, Delays and Disruptions During COVID-19. And with me is Bill Thompson, the CEO of IMR Inc. And that may not mean a whole lot to you, except when I say that it's automotiveresearch.com. Ooh, automotive research. Bill, I'm so impressed. Tell me just a bit about your company.
Sure. The company was founded in 1975. We're located just outside of Chicago. You know, the way I would describe us is we study the aftermarket in the industry, and what we focus on. Typically, when I talk to people about doing automotive research, they always think that we're studying vehicles and consumers purchasing vehicles. The reality is what we study is consumer behavior, but we study and technician and shop behavior, but particularly around vehicle service and maintenance and tool purchasing and all the brands and how people operate when they're maintaining their vehicle, but also how the shops operate when they're making decisions about purchasing parts and brands, who they're buying from and suppliers, and it just goes on and on and on. So we have, vast amounts of data that already exist, plus our customers ask us to do very specific other insights that are related to their businesses. Yeah. So we're a full service market research company, and been around a long time, and data is kind of our thing, and insights, I should probably say that. So it used to be data, now it's insights.
You can't get the insights without the data.
That's correct.
Okay. So let me just tell everyone, if you go to automotiveresearch.com, very, very easy, simple URL to remember, automotiveresearch.com, you need to find yourself a half hour of time, because you will get lost in Bill's website. And I found myself lost one day. And so here's the deal. Open up these surveys, take a look at it, take a look at the angle that he brings up the data with you. And why I'm so in love with automotiveresearch.com is because I think there's a story behind the stories that you're telling. And I want to have you back, and I'd love to be able to bring in some service professionals now, either in town halls or in CarmCast or somewhere along the line, where we can take your data and ask the industry about how they perceive it and how they look at it.
I agree. I think there's when we get statistics back, right, there's color, but there's not the kind of color you're talking about, right? Yeah. And there's always that more qualitative view of what we're seeing, which is always really, really important.
So great. Thank you for that preamble. I appreciate it. Now, let's do this. We talked about the title, Shoptalk, Delays and Disruptions During COVID-19, and there's 3 particular surveys and or slides that I want to show. And here is one of them, and we're going to have Bill walk us through this. And I just want to make one quick change here on the screen. This one is the frequency of disruption in getting parts for the vehicles that you service. And I find this slide, I'm going to bring this up real large here, Bill. I know you can see it on your screen.
Yeah.
And let's walk our audience through what the data is telling us here.
Sure. And I'm going to back up just a second to help your audience understand where this stuff even comes from.
Sure.
The reality is our customers call us, email us all the time. We have these conversations, and what's interesting is if you look at our website, all those subjects are things that we didn't dream up. They're things that our customers are asking us, and we have a mechanism to go out and get these answers, in some cases pretty quickly. This is another example of this. So this was born out of a customer question, and the actual customer question is the last slide, and we kind of backed up into the very first slide, which is all about the frequency of disruptions in, frankly, the supply chain. Are shops having any issues getting parts for their shops? And if so, what are they doing? How are they behaving? That's always what do they do when this thing happens to them, right? And that's what this is born out of.
To establish the basis for this, Bill, and I found this out by the time we've spent together before the show here, how you make phone calls to shops. I mean, this is not a quick random, please take my survey. You're going out. You're being offensive, right?
Yeah. Well, and some people think that that's nearly impossible to do, but we talk to 500 shops a month just in our syndicated research alone. We've been doing phone-based shop research since 2000, every month after month after month, let alone all the custom stuff that we do. Is there an internet based panel out there? No, we're actually planning on starting one. We're actually getting ready to launch it to invite people in, but nonetheless, they are two different animals in terms of methods. But yes, this is all phone-based, live talking to them.
Got it. Well, appreciate that setup. Now let's jump into this slide.
Yes. So, the big question is, during that 2 month, let's just say April, May period, end of March, April, May period, were the shops actually, and this is general repair shops, independent repair shops, were they having disruptions in getting parts for the vehicles that they were servicing? And it's always interesting. You go into the stuff, you never know exactly what to expect, right? And at the end of the day, 25%, 26% of the shops were saying, 1 out of 4 shops were saying, yes, I've either very frequently or frequently during that particular time frame had some level of disruption getting the parts to service the vehicles that are coming into my shop. Mm-hmm. From an analytical perspective, you can slice and dice data till the cows come home, right? But, 2 of the typical ways we look at data is by location based and size based. And size based for us is base size, right? Not revenue size, because there is some correlation between base size and revenue size. Mm-hmm. But this whole urban, suburban, rural. And what I find interesting about this is you can always kind of see these trends up. So if you look at very frequently, nearly 20% of the shops in quote unquote rural America said they very frequently had a disruption. Right. 1 out of every 5 shops out there in the rural America was having some level of disruption. And conversely, 1 to 3 base shops had more trouble getting parts than 8+ base shops. Yeah. And so it's that dynamic. And how do they play together? I think we would say that, well, you probably have it doubly bad if you're a rural shop and you're 1 to 3 bay. Things aren't probably great. Why is ultimately the question. Would it fall into those 2 particular categories? It's anybody's guess. You might say that maybe it's who they're buying from. Maybe it's location based, because we do know that they were having trouble because places were closed. Yep. But it was a very real thing, right? And that was the first.
Was the survey in the beginning of COVID? Was this kind of in March when it was all peaking?
No, it was in. I think it was in May.
In May.
In May, looking back 6 weeks. Because that's how we framed all this, right?
I think we got our sea legs by then, but yet, suppliers were having problems with the level of part-time older drivers that they had that were delivering parts. They could have had a staffing issue, and I think because of the whole distribution angle and the truck moving and DCs open at full staff, no doubt it put some pressure on the availability issue.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And when we asked the open-ended questions, we did have a why in there. It's all of what you're talking about. There was nobody there. Like that. They were open, but they closed at like 4 or something along that line that we heard a lot of.
But as I look over here, the rarely and never was like 51% right here.
Yep.
And the other thing that I found was right over here, this 50% of the larger shops also kind of agreed with the rarely never. and then it was a little, almost about the same in the 3 bay. So no doubt COVID had an effect, but here's what's amazing. The guys that I've talked to, the shop owners, ladies, guys, they've said that they're going to have that they had their best May ever in June, and June could be their biggest month in the history
Yes.
of their companies.
Oh, do I ever agree with that? And as I was saying beforehand, we just literally 1 hour ago finished a lengthy piece on delayed maintenance. And one of the things, so we talk to 100,000 households every year, and they report back on how they maintain all their vehicles, including what they're delaying. And we saw that spike up in delayed maintenance. But when they say, when are you coming to market, right? A month to 2 months. Right. So I would expect over the summertime, as things loosen up and people start driving, there's going to be probably, I think in our estimate, roughly 10 million vehicles that had an additional delay prior to that's a little bit higher than last quarter, coming back into the market.
Yeah. Good stuff. So hopefully everyone can appreciate the data that Bill is bringing to us and a little interpretation behind the scenes. Let's move on to your second slide here. Let me toss this up on the screen. And here it is. I'm playing producer here with myself today.
Yeah.
So thank you for being patient with me as I click the right buttons. This one is all about suppliers.
Right. So, the logic is, did you have a disruption? How did you manage it from a supplier perspective and then a brand perspective, right? So, we wanted to know that if they were having disruption in getting parts, what did they do? And really the question on everybody's mind was, are they trying new places? Right? Other than their first, second, third call, right? Are they going out to a supplier maybe that they've never tried before because it's just important to get the part and they just need to get it? And so, because what I would say that our customers might be worried about would be the extension of the behavior that occurred in this 2 month time frame, let's just say, and that it extends continually. Yeah. Are they going to lose business? Right? So that's the big question. And, it's not as if we had a lot of people saying, yes, I very frequently, tried a new supplier, right? That maybe, let's just, between the two of them, it's 8 or 9%. Yeah. Maybe 1 out of every 10 shop tried somebody completely new. And then you have the occasionally. I think the fear is always when there's a disruption and there's a behavior change that, you hear a lot of people talk about consumers that they're never showing up in a store again because they like the online buying experience so much, and it's so much easier that all of a sudden they have been awakened to something that they might not have ever done. Right. And that's kind of what this was trying to speak to, was there any differences? And when we took it a step further to say, well, who did you actually buy from if you were having disruption and you wound up trying a new supplier, right? Yeah. And those folks are the folks that were very frequently or occasionally having a disruption. And 61% of them mentioned online sources, right? Amazon being number one, by the way.
I was blown away by that number. I was. If you were going to taste what it was like over here, 61% of the people went to either Amazon, eBay, or another online source. Now, that's not a WD, a jobber who's doing e-commerce with you electronically online. This is like, hey, this is non-traditional.
So this is the fun part of our job, Cam, is that instead of us, reading off items to them, we just asked them and literally wrote it down. And the fun part was going through, looking at every single response and categorizing every one of them. And we took anything with a .com on the end of it, eBay, Amazon, Rock Auto, JC Whitney, right? Which are all these names that are popping up. They're not WDs, and they're not, a jobber's website, because you can tell who they are based on their answers.
The top 5 reasons, this is interesting. They didn't have the part. There was faster delivery. Regular supplier is closed.
Yep.
Guaranteed delivery, and regular supplier has limited hours. Those all look like perfect COVID challenges over there.
Exactly. And I'm glad you said challenges because, just about a week ago, we released a segue to a piece we did earlier in the year, which was on what are the shop challenges. And earlier in January, we released a piece on, what did the shops, I thought it would be fun to ask the shops, what do they perceive their biggest challenges are for themselves and their technicians heading into 2020, right? Well, we followed it up to say, well, now what are your biggest challenges for the year, right? Because now you've gone through this very unique circumstance. And what I found very interesting was that the third and fourth position issue was getting parts and finding parts. So what's interesting to me about that and what that says to me is that they've experienced this disruption. And it was painful enough in some way, shape, or form that they consider it, or they're worried about it being an issue for the remainder of the year. That doesn't mean it's going to be, but they're worried about it.
Yeah.
And arguably, if you were to add 3 and 4 together, it comes up into the number one spot, which is amazing to me. And that number one spot is right. What's right after it is keeping my employees safe, keeping my customers, the COVID issues, right?
Yeah, the COVID.
So it does kind of tie together.
Great stuff. And in fact, we had a chance to pick a bunch of these different topics, but these 3 I think are going to be great. Here's the next slide and our last one of the day. And we so appreciate getting some bandwidth from you, our listener. By the way, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all kinds of different Facebook outlets. And please give us a share. And if not, encourage a friend or a foe to watch this over the next few days, and it'll be published up on the CarmCast page on my website, remarkableresults.biz. Let's jump into this one here, Bill.
Sure.
This one is about brand. Oh, yeah, I love this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this was almost like a sigh of relief to a lot of our customers because, the reality is that brand's really important at the end of the day. Brand loyalty. And what this essentially says is that even though they were having disruptions, they were still loyal to their brands. That would be the way that I read it. And so for our branded product customers, right, this means that they're not really switching brands. They're brand loyal, and it's pretty consistent amongst all shops and all locations, right? Which was, this was the initial question that came up with one of our customers was, are they switching suppliers and switching brands just to get the car fixed or the vehicle fixed? And, my gut tells me no, because we've done enough research, very category specific research. That's always like, what's more important, the brand or the supplier? Brand. The brand's important at the end of the day, right? We know the mantra, no comeback. So this is the thing I've used ad nauseum, and it gets the job done. So therefore, I know that I can rely on it. It's kind of the part and parcel of what the shops do amongst other things.
Yeah,
so,
you imagine how hard a supplier works to be sure they have the right brand, and when that's there, then you have one of these. It's a marriage. Yeah,
exactly.
So you keep saying, and I want to help the audience understand. Bill says, "Well, my customers." Well, you do market research for probably the biggest names in our industry because they want to know this stuff,
Right.
and after it's done and probably presented, and they have obviously paid you to do this, are there any privates, or do we as an industry get a chance to see all of the surveys?
No, anything that we do for our customers is proprietary to them. We do not share that data. We would lose all credibility. But but there's a very fine line between it would be really nice to know this one little thing versus doing a full-blown study, like a big study where they're going to pay a lot of money for. And so our partnerships with our customers are such where they can call us up, like this is a really great example, and we say, wow, well, we're just going to tack a few questions onto the end of something we're already doing. Let's get that answered.
Okay.
And that's ours, which we publish out, right? And they're fine with that kind of stuff because it gets them, right?
I got it. Well, they're asking you for specific brand names. We're not seeing that in this. We're seeing the aggregate of the data here.
Well, yeah. And the reality, though, is in something like this, though, there's certain things we don't publish. For example, and some of the other stuff, we know whether they're buying from Napa, Worldpac, CarQuest, Advance, AZ. We know all that stuff, and we could look at the data this way. We just don't. We don't publish.
And that's fair, and that's really fair. But the right side of this, the top 5 reasons you switch from your regular preferred brand, the lack of availability issue, and I think many suppliers probably got so worried at the beginning of COVID, about having the product that they need to sustain their own business, and it looks like the service professional was worried that they don't need comebacks, they don't need labor claims, they wanted to have a sustaining brand, access to their brand, and it didn't matter. Supplier loyalty was one thing, brand seems to be just as important.
Exactly. And that's always the right when you talk about from a researcher perspective and our perspective, like the $64,000 question is always, how do you get somebody to try your brand? How do you get a shop to try your brand?
Yeah.
Right. And this is what makes it so hard sometimes, is because this speaks to brand loyalty and creatures of habit. We know these things work for us, right, as a shop.
So here's a little twist on this slide to my audience. My audience, of course, is the service professional technicians, the independent aftermarket here. You have a brand. And if you could look at this survey and see some of the concerns that you have for brand, think about your customer and having concerns about your brand and how well you're protecting it. And if you're delivering the goods, an on-time, high-quality repair with, minimal comebacks. And of course, in the world of COVID, safe and disinfected.
Right.
So those are all things to keep your brand strong. This was phenomenal. Thank you. My new friend, Bill Thompson, the man with the data. And and if you like this, please give us a couple of thumbs up, as you watch this over the next couple of days. And if you would love to see Bill back, which I do, please say, get Bill back, because he's got so much data, and I've got stuff in front of me that we would love to show, and maybe get him on some Remarkable Results Radio podcasts and doing some panel discussions with your data, because I would love to be able to hear, like you said earlier, the color side of the data by bringing on some people in the industry to discuss the data. So that'd be great.
Agree. Well, I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it was great. Thank you so much, Bill Thompson, CEO of IMR Inc., or better known as automotiveresearch.com. Is that okay to say that, IMR?
Absolutely. We brand it both ways.
Good, great. And thanks for being here, everyone. Have a great week. We will see you Friday, live, 12 o'clock, Town Hall Academy. Bye.